Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. I'm here with Allison, and this is Maintaining Frame number 63. Is humanity becoming an endangered species? Kevin Dolan seems to think so. We're going to be looking at it's an audio only interview, but I'll probably still display the screen of something called the Tom Woods Show. Tom Woods he's like a political commentator. I believe he's libertarian. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't really, watch his stuff very often, although I've heard the name circulating. And he has a special guest on, who is discussing. The special guest is discussing what they're calling a demographic implosion. So the guest is Kevin Dolan, and he is a Columbia University. Oh, I'm sorry. That's a sponsor thing. I'm sorry. He is a Harvard, I think. But it doesn't matter. So he has some studies. I think he talks a lot about finance normally, but he is talking about demographics today because we are, despite people saying that, the earth is overpopulated or whatever, we're actually heading for potentially a massive demographic collapse. And they're trying to figure out, why is this happening? Why aren't men wifing up these women? And we will look at that. So
yes, we're going to look at that. And one of the reasons why I think this is an economic issue is because, well, for a while now, we've been selling the labor of our children and our grandchildren, which won't exist. At some point, somebody's, the payment has to come due. It's like, yeah, it's basically the people in the West have been, we're in a hotel room and we're assigning all of the cost of our extravagant living, our extravagant, programs, where we're basically assigning the cost to the room of our children. So we're just signing it. You know how you get room service, then you sign.
Yeah.
We're just signing it to them, but there are no children.
Yeah.
And so at some point, the concierge is gonna be like, wait.
Mm-hmm.
These people do not exist. You are charging this to people who do not exist.
Yep.
And then we're screwed. I do not know if this analogy helped because I'm terrible at them.
We'll get into it more, but yeah, it's going to feel pretty daunting. I'll just say that. And at least I think that there's still a chance to reverse course. And I know there are some groups of people, like the Amish, that will probably be fine. But yes, it's not good. So
who knew?
yeah, it's not good. Well, I mean, and the Mormons, they're having a lot of kids too. So I hope I hope you got your 10-speed and your sleeveless collared shirt, or like short sleeve collared shirt ready, because they seem to be the ones doing the best. But let's get into the video. Before we do though, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is?
Oh crap, I'm terrible at this. July.
Guess what day 26th? It is? Mike. No, no, you don't have to say that. I'm quoting from an old Geico commercial, where there's an office and there's a camel walking around the office saying, "Hey everybody, guess what day it is?" And eventually somebody says, "It's Hump Day," because it's Wednesday. And and the camel goes, "Hump Day." Anyway, so it's Hump Day.
God damn it!
It's very obscure. Very obscure.
I went along the wrong angle.
Mike. Guess what day it is, Mike? I'm gonna show you the commercial later, if you haven't seen it. It's from a while back, so when Geico made funny commercials. But anyway, so I guess what I wanted to ask you is
the things.
Yeah, do the things.
Was that what you wanted to ask me?
Well,
it sounds like you were a little disappointed there.
No. Do the things, because what I'm going to ask you has to do with the video or the audio. It's a YouTube video, but there's no video component. It's just audio. So.
Okay. All right. Well, we could always look at his lovely face. His classic libertarian appearance. Does that sound like I'm throwing shade?
No.
I'm just saying, libertarians, they look like economists often.
Variations of the Monopoly Man.
Yeah. Okay, so we are doing our monthly fundraiser. We started it a while ago, but I should remind everyone that we are attempting to get the funds to maintain us for another month. If you would like to help us out, if you'd like to join our very generous supporters, please go to feedthebadger.com/support. Everything that you can put into the hat is very much appreciated. So just take a moment, put that in your URL. I don't know if is that the new term for it today?
Oh, I don't know. Is that what we're calling it?
No. The bar, put it in feedthebadger.com/support and throw what you can in. And if you would like to send us a message during the show, the best way to do so is at feedthebadger.com/justthetip, all one word. And you can we get the full benefit of whatever funds you send us, and you get the benefit of avoiding YouTube shenanigans and also having a bit more space to elaborate upon your esoteric and sometimes a little bit baffling thoughts. So there you go. Feedthebadger.com/justthetip to send us a tip and also in many cases baffle us. And feedthebadger.com/support to make sure that we continue to be here to be baffled by you.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
All right. So before we get into it, I'll put the image on the screen. I do have a couple of different links that we can also look at that are related. I wanted to ask you.
I'm just saying, libertarians often look like bankers and economists.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And
they
I mean,
have that quality.
I've seen Tom Woods around. Again, he's fine with me. I don't have any beef with libertarians. Sometimes I think that they are, let's say, a bit unrealistic, and so because this is like the world we live in now. But that's okay. I get it. Like I am libertarian in, let's say, in theory. Perhaps not in practice. So, I mean, somewhat, yeah, for sure.
Well, you have a dog, right?
Ideally,
libertarian.
Yeah, ideally, I would.
Jojo, earn your keep. There,
well, yeah,
doggo.
Yeah. I mean, he's a herding dog that has nothing to herd. That's why he herded Mike all weekend, because he didn't have anybody else to herd. So he was herding Mike. And,
really?
Yeah.
He was herding Mike. Like
like Mike would get up and go to the bathroom, or he'd go get a drink, or he'd go out for a cigarette, or something like that. And then when Jojo would follow him and like be right behind him, and then when he would come back, Jojo would bark at him to make him go back to his seat. And I mean,
I'm sure Dr. Randomer Cam really enjoyed that.
Well, I mean, he didn't mind Jojo. I said, look, Jojo's harmless, but he's a dog that has an instinct to work, and there's nothing. I don't own any land. I don't have any, cows or anything. So he has to herd people. He herds me and Lindsay all the time. We get used to it. And then as soon as he sits down, Jojo climbs up and into his lap and just lays there. So,
well, I got one of those too.
Yeah.
In fact, I think mine might even be on steroids relative to yours.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, we got a handle on it. Little instances of craziness, but there you go.
Yeah, well, they're both shepherding dogs. So
yeah. Mine is pure shepherd. Yours is shepherd plus.
Shepherd plus hound, so a hunting instinct and a herding instinct. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be some interesting times.
Yeah.
All right. So
okay.
Once again, send us a message. feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Support us. feedthebadger.com/support. I do want to do a shout out to the great the great indoors who suggested this topic and also donated or supported us to the tune of $500.
Wow.
Yeah. He did this last month too. He's like, yes, I would like your opinion on this topic.
Yeah.
And I will support you.
Yeah.
If you do give us and that's fine. Like if somebody sends us something, is like, I'm interested in your opinion on this topic, and I'll support you if you do a stream on it, as long as it's not insane. That's fine. It's there's a difference between I want your opinion on this thing and if you don't have this opinion, I'm going to withdraw your support. So that's something I had to deal with last week or this week.
Yeah.
Fun. No, I think it was last week actually.
It's a subject. This particular subject, I brought this up myself a couple times. Because there's another video.
That's probably why he was thinking about it.
Yeah,
too.
so there's another video that I watched from a YouTuber named Tom Bilyeu, who does a bunch of different interviews. He's also the guy that invented the Quest bar. You may have heard of the Quest bar or seen it. And the woman on that, and I have it right here, the woman is Shanna Swan, and it's called Population Collapse: How Modern Life is Making Men and Women Infertile. That's sort of like the chemical part of it. And that's true, but it's more than that. It's also the social part of it, which we will get into. And it is an existential crisis that people are starting to notice.
Yeah, infertility. Like honestly, if you had a good swath of people pairing up and wanting kids, infertility probably would be a minor issue.
Yes.
I mean, it's not like we have to have 10 children each just to have 2 of them survive infancy. You know. So if your female can only like conceive like 3 times, you're pretty much set in this world.
Yep.
And I use the word female. You're gonna be like, oh, you internalized misogyny.
Oh yeah.
I've been dealing with that on Twitter.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not interested. Don't care. Those people are stupid. We're talking about important things now. So.
Okay, yes.
So anyway, let's get into the video. So here's my question. I don't think I need to use any filters because there's no video component. But do you want me to play this at fast speed or slow speed? Because last time you wanted slow speed, but we're not exactly. They're not saying anything particularly contentious. So
can I just listen to his accent and make a decision based on that? Honestly, if
they have American accents basically, so.
I think we'll probably be fine with copyright with this individual. I think he's probably sensible enough to realize that having his icon and his channel plastered on another channel is probably a good thing. So I think probably we'll be fine with copyright. But just let me hear him so I can give you an absolute answer to whether or not I can understand him.
Okay. So I'm gonna play it and just listen if you're ready. I'm gonna play it now.
In terms of, we could talk in depth about the economic consequences of this, but just in terms of the raw numbers and the consequences it's going to have on demographics, Korea right now has a 0.78 total fertility rate, meaning that under current conditions, if those conditions were to hold throughout a woman's lifetime, the number of kids she would end up having is 0.78, so less than 1 child per woman. And the way that cashes out from a generational perspective is that for every 100 living Koreans, there will be 6 great-grandchildren.
All right. So this is why it's an issue, right? You're projecting forward a few generations.
That's really insane.
Yeah, South Korea is the worst. So like, there's a guy that is in South Korea that I've been talking to on Steam. He was in one of our live chats for a show. I think it was for the news show, maybe. And because we were discussing South Korea in the news show, there was a story about women's parking spaces. And he was telling me that there's a big, problem with demographic implosion, and we knew about this. And he mentions Japan too. That the Japanese problem was something that got me into this whole conversation to begin with years ago, like way before I knew about Honey Badger Radio. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and he was talking about, have you ever heard of the herbivore man? And I was like, no. And it's a problem. In Japan, it was a really big problem, although they are beginning to address it, so it's less of a problem than it was. But now South Korea, but it's not only those places, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Okay? So let's continue.
Which is, that's not comparable to the smallpox epidemics in the New World. It's not comparable to the Black Death. It's the most dramatic and drastic population collapse maybe in human history. And it's going to happen over 3 generations. That's Korea. Japan is a little bit ahead of them. I think their fertility rate is like 1 point something. It's very, very low. And so that means maybe 9 or 10 great-grandchildren. Europe and...
All right, I'm pausing there. What do you think about this speed? This is normal.
This speed is good. There's something a little bit overdriven about his the way he's talking. I think if you move it faster, it's going to just be too confusing.
Sure.
I'm sorry. Like I am absolutely terrible with audio.
Well, that's fine. I mean, I have a lot of time codes, so yeah. I just don't want.
That's really stark, though. Like just the way that he put it. 100 people will have 6 grandchildren. And for the people who are like really excited about climate change, the truth is that humans have less of an impact on their environment when they are a larger population. I mean, people don't know this, but
you are the carbon they want to reduce.
Yeah, I know, but the thing is, it's gonna probably be like it's population collapse, economic collapse, human social collapse would be the biggest ecological disaster on the planet. Because we wouldn't be able to continue to manage all of the technologies that keep us alive and are at a point where if they deteriorate or degrade rapidly, they will cause a huge amount of ecological devastation. Look at all the derailments and the explosions that are happening. That's probably just as a result of losing a certain amount of blue-collar expertise. But imagine losing like 90% of it, how much things won't be able to be maintained. Nuclear plants, coal plants, chemical facilities, trains. And the other thing is that at some point, if our ability to sustain ourselves breaks and our supply line is so damaged that people can't get a reliable source of food, human race will flood out of the cities like locusts and eat everything in the environment. It'll be horrific. So no, this is an ecological catastrophe, as well as a demographic catastrophe and an economic catastrophe. This is not what we want. What we want is to get people innovating, get people thinking about these problems, plant trees for God's sake, and at least keep our population stable.
Yeah.
All right. And that means that we'll be able to continue to manage all of the Pandora's box that we've opened up without killing the rest of the planet. And we will potentially be able to solve some of the long-term problems. We need not less people, but at least the same amount of people. And that's the really frightening thing.
Yeah.
Like, we are at the point where the world won't survive without people.
Yeah. Oh no. I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, the thing is that most of the stuff coming from not just the environmentalists, but like all these people, the feminists, etc., it's an anti-human, anti-natalist sentiment that's coming out and has been for a while. And I know that, as an aside, the Barbie movie is part of that. But
they don't like. Here's the problem. All right.
Okay.
When you talk about reducing population, and when you talk about what they're talking about, like getting rid of the ways that we keep ourselves warm and keep ourselves fed and stuff, you realize that at some point, when all of this stuff breaks down, then you're just dealing with the human animal. And you would be all these people who are sitting in their chairs pondering about population reduction. You would be amazed at what people will do to keep themselves fed when they're starving. All right? And imagine, no matter how well you plan this die-off, at some point, there won't be enough of a supply line, enough technology to sustain the remaining humans. And they will flood into whatever's left and strip it bare. You guys are nuts if you think this is the solution, the way forward. And I can't believe that people who think about these things, supposedly ecological catastrophe professionally, don't realize that.
Yeah.
There's no scenario in which people no longer are able to maintain these systems in which they don't take out the environment with them, either because these systems break down and cause huge amounts of pollution and destruction, or because when they break down, people need to eat, and they will be desperate, and they'll strip look at Mexico. It doesn't have anything larger than a rat anymore because it's been completely stripped of all its animals. Like, that would be a mass extinction event. The death of human civilization will be a mass extinction event on this planet. Why are you inviting that?
I mean,
Sorry,
I think
I'm
that's.
a little infuriated.
No,
by
I get it. I get it. Look, I've been beating the drum on this for a long time. I get it, but this is I am at the point now where these people, this is what they want, and one of the reasons why is, by the way, spoiler alert, they're not invested in the future because they don't want kids. So they don't care that other people might suffer because it doesn't affect them in the now. So let's continue.
To be fair, like, I don't have kids, you don't have kids, Mike and Lauren don't have kids.
No, I know, and we talked about that, but I do care about the future. I care about my brother's kids. I care about my sister's kids. I care about my brother's kids. And I don't have to have, like, I can't have kids, but I'd like to. I'm looking into it, okay? But if I don't, that doesn't mean I'm just gonna say, well, fuck it, like, as long as I'm taken care of, right? But a lot of these people are saying that. So it's not really about whether or not you have children. It's just that if you're not having kids, and that also means, like, for many people that don't, like, are by choice not having children, they're also not invested in anything outside of their own immediate desires, because there's no future for them, so they don't care. So I'm not saying that's what you think or what Lauren thinks or anything, but I'm saying that's what a lot of the people that are promoting this stuff think.
Well, I just wanted to point that out. I mean, you can not have children and still care about the future for other people. Like, and that's the distinction I want to make.
Yeah, no, I get it.
And I know that, you know, people should probably be having kids, but again, sometimes I think it's necessary to have some people who are just, you know, they may not have as much skin in the game, so that they aren't as clouded by that kind of fear. Yeah. In order to embracing solutions. But regardless, my overall point is this. Demographic collapse for humanity will lead to ecological catastrophe and probably a mass extinction event on this planet. This is not the way forward. Okay.
All right, let's keep going.
And the U.S. are very similar in terms of their native-born population. They're helped economically, I guess that's debatable, but they're helped in terms of the statistics by migration. And so we are all in this situation where, and it's worldwide, and in the West, it's the most mature and it's the most intense at this moment. But if you look at the drift of fertility rates across the world, including Africa, including Latin America, including India and Pakistan, all these places that we think of as like very, very populous, very, very fertile, all of their TFRs, all of their fertility rates are dropping like a rock, to the point that by 2030, the only region of the world that will have positive population growth on Earth is sub-Saharan Africa. And by the end of this century, they will have fallen below replacement fertility as well.
All right, just pause.
Yeah, this is a big damn problem. Like, I can't emphasize this enough, guys. Like, this is the Pandora's box. If we can't maintain our technologies and we can't maintain the ability to feed and clothe and keep ourselves warm and shelter ourselves, it's going to be a disaster for everything on the planet. But that's really also quite interesting. Like, I have mentioned that immigration is really what's keeping the West propped up at this point. And I've gotten some serious blowback from that. But if you look at it, he's exactly right. If you look at it in terms of the economy, the value that the West is bringing, in particular the U.S. is bringing to the world, appears to be a stable currency. And you need to have people living and paying taxes in that currency. And if your native population is not giving birth to the next generation of taxpayers, you have to have immigration, period. Until you can reverse the situation in which native-born Americans are not producing children, you are going to have immigration. And you can't avoid it.
There's a problem with that, though. Because the immigrants that are coming in here, they're not coming in here to produce, they're coming in here to take. So they're coming in here and getting welfare. They're coming in here and getting government-funded programs, which are being paid for by mostly people who are native to this country. That's the problem, is that we've opened the borders and we have a welfare state. And they talk about that in this video. It's going to implode. Like, the people who are paying into it are leaving, or they're, you know, and the people who are coming here with their hand open. And so, like, that's going to expire very fast. So
I don't disagree with that, but consider also that even if you're on welfare, you're still moving money around in this system. Like, and it's infuriating, and I'm not saying that it isn't unjust to the people who are native to, you know, like the people who are paying taxes. It's 100% unjust. But on the other hand, they're still moving money around in this system, even if that money is printed and just handed to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that, you know, and all of this is a disaster.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it is good. I'm just observing the fact that if it's a choice between keeping that money moving to keep the value in the dollar because the reason why is because the American economy is so big. It's like a gigantic black hole when it comes, and that black hole exerts gravity, which is itself the power, the usefulness of the dollar on the world stage. It's that it's a stable currency. Probably I've got a whole bunch of ANCAPs screaming at me in the distance. And even if people are moving that money around, increasing the gravity using welfare, that's still of value to the whole system. So again, the only way to unfuck ourselves is to get breeding again.
Yeah,
it's not ending immigration.
That's
to
another
get breeding again.
Yeah, it's almost like men and women are that dynamic is the most important dynamic, no matter what. It's like the core of everything. Yeah. So let's play some more.
So you can look at it from the cultural and personal perspective. It's just millions and millions of people who will be deprived of this very fundamental human experience. But from an economic perspective, the consequences are going to be absolutely devastating. I mean, you look at Detroit and what essentially happened to Detroit. You could talk about the reasons why everybody abandoned Detroit. That's a broader sort of policy conversation. But like, ultimately, the way Detroit collapsed was the tax base abandoned it. The tax base left. And so you had just tens of thousands of vacant homes that had been abandoned. You had people scattered across this sort of wasteland, and like, abandoned homes don't keep. They fall apart and they get mold and they get stripped for the copper and the aluminum.
I'm just pausing there for the banana. I mean, I know that went long, but I want to play more. I don't think it's going to be an issue because I think, like Allison said, I think Tom Woods is probably okay with this. But I thought it's probably good to pause and say a few things. So that's me saying things. Again, send us a super. I got a super chat from John Manimoo for £5, and it looks like 3 hippos underwater. So thank you, John Manimoo. Very cute. I don't know what that means, but I like it. All right, let's continue.
And so even the people who chose to stay, the value of their homes collapsed, partly because they were surrounded by urban and suburban blight, but also because all of our homes and our 401ks and Social Security and Medicare, all of the models that give us the sense of like what your home is worth, what your 401k is worth, those are all predicated on reliable economic growth, including population growth. And I'll stop in just a second, but like, there's only 2 ways an economy can grow, right? You can get more efficient, more productive per worker, or you can get more workers. And currently we're in this situation where productivity per worker is growing. It's sort of leveling off, tapering, stagnating, but the number of workers is about to drop like a rock.
Okay. So, yeah, it's bad news. I don't know what else to say. You know, so if only men and women liked each other. I wonder what's keeping them apart.
And so if these circumstances continue, if this demographic collapse transpires the way it looks like it's going to, you will not be able to count on reliable economic growth anywhere in the Western world, which means that the way people invest their money, sort of what the currency does from an inflationary or deflationary perspective, all of these assumptions will be upended. And as far as I can tell, and from the people that I've talked to who look at these things, none of that is priced in. None of that is being accounted for by policy leaders, by investment leaders. Like, it's just not, no one has taken a serious look at this. And it's incredibly, I would say it's the biggest problem of our time, of the next century.
One thing.
All right. So, Allison, do you want to say anything about that, or? Allison?
Yes, and I will do so just as I unmute. Okay, sorry about that. I was muted and
Yeah.
I was unaware. What I was gonna say is, again, this is not a solution to ecological issues at all. This is going to be a massive disaster for the planet as well as us as people. We are intertwined. Like, and this is one of the things that's most annoying about the zero pop people. We're here because Mother Nature, the spaghetti monster, evolution made us. And we are now intertwined in this environment. It is as reliant on us as we are on it. When we disappear, it's most likely going to be absolutely catastrophic. I mean, ultimately, the Earth will probably recover and evolve new life forms. But for the ones that exist now, it's going to be absolutely catastrophic. So we can't just fall asleep at the wheel. We can't just disappear and expect things to work. Because as the generations go, as we forget or are unable to maintain ourselves, we end up back at the human animal, and the human animal will strip the earth to feed itself. And one of the things I wanted to mention is that, for example, in Europe and in Britain, there has never been more, well, prior from like the very primordial times, but the forests have actually recovered in those areas from medieval and prior farming practices, which were slash and burn. So current modern technology, the more technology, the better we get at shepherding our resources and having a lighter and lighter touch on the world ecologically. And this is something that I've heard from a biologist who, there's new schools of thought about the nature of human impact on the planet. And that one of the schools of thought, and it's becoming more evident that this is correct, is that the more people there are, the less impact we have. Because the more we can rely on technologies and innovations to minimize our impact and to help each other, help feed each other. So the idea that less humans is better is wrong. I mean, maybe not significantly more humans until we can colonize other worlds, but the same amount is fine. A little bit more is fine. It's not going to destroy the Earth. We are part of this ecology. We have every right to be here, and we are wanted here. Otherwise, we wouldn't have existed in the first place. Wanted insofar as you can ascribe that kind of anthropomorphic attitude to probably a force of nature. But we're every much as wanted as, I don't know, the bald eagle or the porpoise or any other charismatic animal, right? We were meant to be here. We have every right to be here. And we are now a part of this world inextricably. And if we die, it dies. And again, it'll probably recover in a couple million years. But who wants that? Okay, so let's just be a little bit happier about ourselves and our existence. We're not a fucking virus. We're not a cancer. We just are what we are. And we came from this place. We came from this ecology. We are the children of this ecology. It's ours, and we are its. Like, it's like, what I'm talking about is that. Well, go ahead, Brian.
No, I was just gonna say we're part of nature. Like, it's not,
Yes.
like, these people will treat humans like we're some separate creature that doesn't belong here. We are part of the system, and
Yes.
I don't think these people are ignorant. I don't think these people are stupid. I think this is on purpose. I think they hate us. They hate themselves. They hate humans for existing, and they want us gone. That's why they make arguments like the planet is overpopulated. People live and die. They are born and die every day. That number mostly stays the same. We are not even close to maximum capacity, I don't think. And I don't think that any evidence bears that out. So, but these people, I'm not naming names because it's more like an idea or a value.
This attitude,
this thought pattern is making it to where we are not forming families and we are not having children. And I'm going to get into that later in this video, because it's not simply because no one wants them.
Okay, and I mean, just to conclude my thought, if there is no intention in the earth, like, honestly, if you're just going to say that it's just material, then the only morality is a human morality. Like, if you're going to say that a rock is more important than a human, an unconscious animal is more important than a human, no, that's 100% wrong. So if there is no intentionality to nature, like if there's no Gaia, like the Gaia hypothesis, which, you know, I'm a bit of a woo person, so I might be okay with suggesting that there is maybe not an intention that we can understand or a consciousness that we can really comprehend, but maybe there is an intention to the ecology that we exist within. But if there is, then it wanted us. And if there isn't, then we have to put humans first, because we experience, we have consciousness, you know, we connect to others, connect to other beings. I mean, we're the only creatures on the planet that are quite what we are, which is very capable of sympathy and empathy with almost anything. Okay, and which is probably where a lot of this is coming from. This thought pattern is having this kind of this fearful empathy about, oh, the ecology, the mind that we exist within, the ecological mind we exist within is being destroyed. Well, if you allow for some kind of intentionality like that, I mean, if there is no intentionality, then again, it's just base material. And I'm not going to put base material ahead of something that does have consciousness, human race. Okay? But if there is some kind of intentionality, and again, I'm okay with that because I'm woo, it chose us. It selected us. It created us for a reason.
I'm just going to say God, if that's okay with you guys. Don't get triggered. But I'm just going to say God.
We're going to come out as theists today.
Just saying it, you know. But anyway, let's play some more.
I think when you made a presentation in the School of Life group on this, that I guess I hadn't realized was that immigrants into the U.S. have also leveled off in terms of reproduction and fertility, because what you'd heard for a long time was, well, one way that the United States is not as vulnerable as other countries is that it's got all this immigration, but the immigrants apparently too are barely at replacement level. Even if you set aside the social cohesion problems, if you have a society with a huge number of native-born retirees who have health problems that need to be paid for by people who feel absolutely no fellow feeling with them, and that's a major problem. But even if you put that aside, is it the case that the U.S., even with immigration, is barely hobbling along?
Yep. These are the problems with immigration. If we had at least in the United States, a more cohesive culture of people who can be from wherever, but they're willing to come here and be contributing members to society, then I think we'd be in a much better place. But instead, we have set the government has set things up to where immigrants are being let in, and they're telling us it's good for GDP, which is just like some, word that they just throw out there that's supposed to make us happy. But the truth is, not only do they feel no kinship to Americans, but they're here, a lot of them come here to take from us. And the people, the men who are paying into the system to support people, they're not having kids, or they're not having as many kids, or they're basically dying alone. And so that is an unsustainable model, even with immigrants who are also, there are men among them who are also going to run into these problems.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to point out also, like, some of the staunchest, in terms of the immigrants and what's destroying social fabric. There's a hell of a lot of social fabric destruction happening just in-house when it comes to and I'm not talking about the LGBTQ who just want to freaking live their lives and be left alone. I'm talking about the Crusaders. And to be honest, what I'm seeing is that immigrants, Muslim and Latino immigrants, are the ones who are fighting back the most against that. It's a real...
Well, yeah, I mean, if 20% of kids are identifying as queer now because their teacher told them to, or their parents engineered them, and they're like getting hormone replacement therapy and puberty blockers, guess what? They've been castrated. So that is also going to do massive damage to our reproduction rate.
That's horrible. So basically, we're neutering and spaying our children.
Yeah.
Well, that's freaking-tastic.
Yeah.
All right. But anyway, I just wanted to point out that definitely it's the Muslims who are fighting back against that. So in terms of social cohesion, I think it's a lot more complex than people are being brought in and they are not cohesing. I think we are dissolving our own own fabric.
I think that both of those things can be true at the same time. Because if like enough Muslims come in here, America won't look the same at all.
No, it won't look the same.
It basically won't be America anymore.
But it won't look the same if Muslims don't come in, to be honest, because there's all kinds of crap happening now. And I say that without pulling away from your statement about we need to have a strong central identity, a strong sense of shared purpose and a shared destiny. And we don't necessarily have that. But it's not all on the immigrants, because there's a hell of a lot of Native Americans and all over the West who seem to be dead set on destroying any kind of fellow feeling.
Well, yeah.
And destroying family. Come on. I mean, it's really freaking obvious that happening.
I know. Absolutely. It's true. Yeah. People have to fight back. Unfortunately, when this whole thing started was before we were born. This has been going on for that long, and it's basically become normalized in a lot of people.
The fire was started before.
Yeah, the fire. I didn't start the fire. It was always burning since the world was turning. But it started way before we were born. This whole... Well, I did a whole bit on this yesterday, and I don't want to revisit it, but it was about political nullification, where you create a group of people or a class of person, and you say, these are the bad people, and you drive that home into the population over and over and over. And it started with men, or at least one of the places it started was with men. And so this is how we got to this point. So if you just say, if a man speaks up, then the media and the cults, they can just say, well, that's a man, so we don't have to listen to him, and it's shut down. That's how we got there. We used to listen to people. We don't do that. If you could say so-and-so is MAGA, so-and-so is Trump, so-and-so is an incel, so-and-so is an MRA, so-and-so is conservative, well, everybody, we don't have to listen to them. They're the bad people. And that's how it works. That's the purpose of it. That's why I don't play those games. Because I'm interested in the truth. So, that's how we got here. And everybody that's blue-pilled normie, they all go along with it. Because, again, it's what they've been told from everyone. So
yeah, and I mean, we also have to be careful about that with ourselves. Like we were talking earlier about those people, where it's more like a mindset, really, than a group of people. And there's all kinds of reasons why people get into that mindset. Maybe it's depression, nihilism, like a sense of there's not a lot of stuff left in our society that gives people a sense of hope and a sense of a future.
Yeah, and
that's not always on the individual for succumbing to that. So, I mean, I would prefer to refer to it as like a pattern of thinking, and not to get into the habit of just labeling people as things instead of focusing on unhelpful patterns of thinking, perhaps. You know,
Okay.
like I know it's tough. Because it's sort of easy to get into that kind of us versus them, especially since things like, I don't know, internalized misogyny would never have existed. The concept would never have existed if feminists didn't create it.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, I won't get into that. So let's hear a little bit more.
Let's hear some more.
Absolutely. So the US, I think, is at 1.6, 1.7 TFR, which is not replacement. That's a declining population.
Now, is replacement 2.1?
2.1 is replacement. And it's not only declining in terms of absolute numbers, it's declining in terms of its aging. And as a population ages, it's not just that there are more dependents, it's that the dependents per person become more costly. Massive healthcare expenses and living expenses. And so what will transpire by the end of this?
Yeah.
I wanted to point some things out, and also lack of productivity as you age too. The other thing that the U.S. is facing is a gigantic productivity decline. The average productivity of the worker in the U.S. and most likely across the West. So when I say U.S., it's just that the U.S. is studied. I'm not trying to single out Americans. The average American worker is significantly less productive than they've ever been. And again, it goes back to that lack of a sense of shared purpose, a lack of a sense of future. A lot of American workers are just laying flat. They're doing the bare minimum to get by because there's nothing to fight for anymore. There's nothing to build for anymore. You know, and that's really unfortunate. Mm-hmm. And it's something else that's a big problem in the economy.
If only men had something to work for, like children. Or women that love them.
Yeah, but that's entitlement.
Brian. I'm sorry, my bad, incels. All right, let's keep going.
Can I just rant for a moment?
All right.
I cannot believe just the absolute level of chosen stupidity of these arguments that I get into. This idea that because women are seen as a motivating force for men, so men want to have relationships with women. In fact, they want it so badly that in some cases you can get a young man to strap a bomb to his chest and blow himself up just for the hint in the afterlife that he's going to have 72 virgins. I don't know what the hell you're going to do with 72 virgins, but whatever. Okay? Men are motivated.
Like a really big D&D game.
Yeah, really big D&D game. It needs to make that as a comic. What are you doing with your 72 virgins?
Roll for initiative.
Roll for initiative. Okay, I got all right, where was I? Anyway, you can motivate, like the fact that men are motivated by women's company and maybe to raise a couple kids with, but to partner in life, a companion, someone to deal with the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. And you've turned that, feminists have turned that, and it is feminist, guys. Like, maybe I should call them misandrists. Misandrists have turned that into a way of condemning men. The fact that men want to be with women is a way of condemning them. The fact that men are motivated by a desire to have a relationship with a woman in participating in your society is a way of condemning men. Nobody said that the women aren't consenting, or that they don't also want that, or that men want women who aren't consenting. No, just men being motivated by wanting relationships with women is some kind of horrible attack on women. Are you guys like you mental? And then to handed all of this incredibly crucially important stuff. Like, this is the center of the chessboard for human society, the relationship between men and women. Having handed this to a bunch of goddamn lunatics who talk about reducing the male population down to 10% and other disgusting things, We just handed it over to them. Oh yeah, sure. That crazy-eyed cat lady, she'll certainly have something wise to say about the relationship between the genders, herp-a-derp. Like, why did we do this? Did nobody just stop and say, hey, maybe we shouldn't hand defining men and women to the radical lesbians? Maybe that's not going to work out for us. That might have some, some serious detriments downstream. Nobody stopped and thought about that?
Very few.
No.
We were all programmed to do it, though. I mean, I did up until I discovered HBR. I would have been like just another fucking, lemming, like so many. So
but I just like really, I'm asking also the Tom Woods, the libertarians, the conservatives, the people who can understand what I'm saying.
I do understand what you're saying, but I'm trying to tell you that Tom Woods also probably would say, well, I think that women did have it really hard, and so I mean, it's everybody's on the same page in terms of this delusion. That's why they're blue-pilled. So
yes,
it doesn't matter if I'm saying that they are conservative is incorrect, because they're not conserving anything, because they're just leftists that are just like a couple decades behind. That's what I'm saying, because they buy into the core. And the reason is because there's no alternative. That's all there is.
Yeah,
right?
Just stop a moment. Okay, we're facing demographic collapse, which will invariably lead to ecological collapse and a mass extinction event. So environmentalists, you're not going to get anything out of this. It's going to be horrific for everything. All right? We're facing that because people can't recognize that they shouldn't have listened to the radical lesbian separatists when they defined how men and women relate to each other. Okay? This is what they said. They said women's lot has been oppression throughout human history. That's what they said. This is their lens. And if you adopt that lens, you have decided to hand the definition of men and women and the relationship over to people who absolutely despise men. Nothing good is going to come of that. Don't go to the crazy lady screaming at individual oxygen atoms on the corner and expect to get anything functional about her, about how men and women relate from her. And that is what we have done as a society. Instead of going to the old wise babushka and saying, oh, how should we do this? We went to the lunatic in the asylum, and we are suffering for it. This is what we are suffering. We are seeing the end of days because we went to the lunatics and asked them to do the most critical task humanly imaginable, which is to define how men and women relate to each other. And if you are not at the point, looking at the end, we're looking at the boiling lava, the boiling seas, the sackcloth sky, the black sun. We're looking at this shit right now. And if at this point you can't say, hey, maybe we shouldn't have asked the crazy woman for directions. If you can't say that at this point, you are utterly fucking lost. It is time to stop believing the crazy women, okay? It is time to start questioning their assertions and conclusions about reality and how men and women relate. And the biggest one you need to question is this nonsense about men ever constructing a society that didn't put women first for protection and provision. That doesn't make sense evolutionarily. It doesn't make sense socially. It doesn't make sense emotionally. It doesn't make sense politically. And I'll tell you why. Because if that was the case, feminism would be an utter failure. Feminism did not create men caring about women. It exploited the already existing concern that men have for women. All right? Stop listening to the crazy women. Or we're going into the abyss,
Let's
which
play
I
some
don't think
more.
is going to be fun.
No.
All right.
No, it's not going to be fun.
The century is that for every working age family, every working age couple trying to raise kids and iterate and build, there are going to be 4 adult dependents, which currently the ratio is inverted.
The adult dependents, by the way, women. I'm just going to put it out there. There's going to be women in marriages with children paying women that don't want children. And they're going to be draining them.
For every working age family, there's one adult dependent in the system. And so it's not a problem that like, oh, the population will get smaller. Like a lot of people compare this to wildlife populations. Say, well, you know, the population crashes and then it sort of rebuilds. It's like, there's probably some point at which it equilibrates, but we have no idea where that is, because the harder it gets to have children and the more that burden falls on a smaller cohort, the harder it will be for that smaller cohort to sort of clear the economic hurdles that are required to start a family. So this thing is on a positive feedback loop. It's getting worse as it gets worse.
I'm pausing there for the banana again. Allison, remember you're muted, so if you want to jump in, just jump in. But otherwise, I'm just going to keep playing the video. Because I want to get into the bit where they talk about the actual data and what it says about fertility.
And yeah, to directly address the immigration question, it's like Mexico's below replacement fertility. Guatemala is just at replacement fertility and dropping like a rock. All of Latin America by 2030 will be below replacement fertility. And immigrants inside the US, their fertility rate is 2.0. So almost at sustainable levels, but not at replacement. And so I've said the problem with socialism is you run out of other people's money. The problem with this is you run out of other people's kids.
Well, you run out of other people's people. But
yes,
the socialism doesn't help.
Okay, so like I said, like let's just bring this down to brass tacks. We're facing the end. All right, is it time to start questioning the directions of the crazy woman? Is it time to go take a look at the absolute squirrely mess of the brain of the average radical lesbian feminist and say, maybe everything they say is probably bullshit and we shouldn't have believed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well,
I
hard for
don't know
people
what
to-
else
if-
to say to people. I don't
me
know what
neither.
else to say to the libertarians, the conservatives, the traditionalists. I don't know what else to say to you guys, but you never should have listened to them. And you should never have given such an important task as defining the relationship between men and women to a bunch of people who hate men, or alternatively are invested in this very, very lucrative sales pitch that men somehow are hate women.
Yep.
That somehow men hate women. Okay? You know, at some point, if you want to fix this, you got to go to the source of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like, I don't know how else to say this. I think I'm being clear.
Allison, I don't know, like, what you want. We all agree.
Damn it! Why can't I hear you, Brian? What's going on?
Oh, wait, what? You can't hear me? You guys can hear me, right?
Hello?
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you now. I can hear. Okay, so what I did is I went in Discord and I reselected the thing that was already selected, and I could finally hear you. I apologize if I
odd.
was talking over you.
No, it's okay. I was just saying that, you know, you're asking if people get it, but I mean, like, the only feedback you're going to get is from me, and I agree. That's why we're watching this video. And
Well, yeah, tell me in the
everyone,
comments, like-
everyone that's watching gets it too. I mean, we're all on the same page. I just don't
Yes.
think a lot of, well, yeah, we're all on the same page. So,
Yeah, but the normies or the people who are invested in all of this other politics still think that arguing over immigration, arguing over trans women, arguing over Muslims, which is what they did like 5 years ago. I still distinctly remember a bunch of conservatives telling me, are defending the Muslims, is this the hill you want to die on? I'm like, I guess, because they're also men, you know? Like,
yeah, sure.
and now the Muslims are actually might be one small freaking speed bump in the road to destruction. You know, one small obstacle as we just go headlong into the great abyss. you know, and the conservatives were like, oh, wow, the Muslims, you know, suddenly they're okay now.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember all of this. And is it time for the average person to realize that this politics is going nowhere and means nothing if you don't have control over the center of the chessboard, which is the relationship between men and women and how it's defined.
Mm-hmm.
And if you define it in the most miserable, god-awful terms of oppression and hatred, this is what results. And the truth is that demographic collapse is going to wipe all politics off the board. There's going to be nothing left to argue over. We'll basically be eating each other. You know? This is it. This is the central issue, is the relationship between men and women. If you do not have that, if that is not healthy, you don't have a society and you don't have a future. Don't give defining the relationship between men and women over to a bunch of freaking crazy, psychotic, pedophilic, bestialists, like degenerate fucks, just because they're women.
Yeah.
And I am not fucking kidding about my list of horrible things that these people do.
We
like,
are aware.
Oh God, what I saw.
We are aware.
Ugh.
We are aware. Again,
Okay.
we are aware. Okay, let's keep going.
That's sort of the policy band-aid that every sort of polite, right-thinking Western government has proposed. Like, well, we'll just bring in new people. And it's like, even if you stipulate that you like don't care about the Americans who live here and like you don't value them any differently than you value anybody else, which that's not my perspective. But even if that's the case, that will not solve this economic problem.
You mentioned before that this is basically the challenge facing us right now, and that it's not getting nearly the attention it should. Now, there are some high-profile people, a handful, who have tried to call attention to it, but they are the exception rather than the rule.
I'm pausing there for the banana. Yeah, this is again, it is being discussed, but it's another one of these things. When I talked about nullification yesterday, it will be ignored by the mainstream. They have no interest in it. They don't care. And I don't think it's because they're stupid. I think they know, and they're okay with this. And
Or alternatively, they have absolutely no goddamn solution.
yeah, or well, that because of what it would mean, they don't want to face, right? So yeah, there is that.
There's very little.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just like, I keep getting into these arguments. Like today or yesterday, I got into this argument. It was actually with a former guest on the show, Philosophicat.
Oh yeah, Philosophicat. Yeah.
Philosophicat. And it seems to be that everyone is absolutely allergic to the idea that women might need to take some responsibility. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the truth is that we're in this mess because we handed defining this very critical relationship over to the craziest goddamn women we could find. Like, we're literally pulling them out of an insane asylum and saying, hey, how would you like the keys to the nuclear silo, lady? You know, it was absolutely the stupidest thing we could have done. And the only people who can fix it now are women. Because for whatever reason, probably evolutionarily, a lot of the power of defining human morality and the relationship between men and women falls to women. That's what I've seen throughout history.
Mm-hmm.
That social core seems to be women's thing. They're the shield maidens of the social core. And so if we're gonna fix this, we gotta buck up. We gotta be better. And yet all I see from a lot of women is this just racing away from responsibility. Like their hair is on fire, which I do not understand. Like, if you have nothing to be responsible for, then you are nothing. You're a great big ball of nothing.
Yeah, I mean, if you only worship the self, then you're only going to think about number one, and that means you don't care about what happens down the line.
Then you have absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
You only care about number one, but what does that even become when there is nothing but the self? That's
well,
the worst.
it's depressing. I think that they're, again, you can link it to all these other issues like people being overly medicated, people committing suicide. Yeah, we live in a narcissistic culture, especially women. That's
but
it.
Narcissism is leading to absolute nihilism.
Yes, of course, that's where it goes.
And I don't I'm looking at this and I do not and I understand that I'm weird. Like, I know I am an outlier of some description, some strange prototype, okay? And I'm gender atypical. But I'm just telling the gender typical women, like the ones who just, they're right in line with what is expected of women. Why are you so scared of responsibility?
Mm-hmm.
You're not a real girl until you take it.
Yep.
As far as I can tell. I mean, what the hell do I know, eh? Okay, let's keep going.
All right, let's keep going.
Of this. So how long would you say we have before, obviously it's not going to be we wake up one day and there's a crisis. It happens gradually, but what should we be looking for in terms of indicators that the real, let's say, demographic apocalypse is upon us?
So I think you're right that it will be a slide over the course of a generation, but to some extent, it's already baked into the cake. Like, one of the beauties of like demographic research, and one of the things that makes it really valuable, is that you can absolutely determine how many 20-year-olds there will be in 20 years, because we've got the newborns and they're not making any more of them. Like, the number of 5-year-olds is the number of 5-year-olds, and they will grow up to be 15-year-olds and 25-year-olds. And so to some extent, the fact that a tiny fraction of Koreans in 20 years will have to sustain a massive fraction of retiring Koreans at age 70, that's baked in. There's nothing we can do about that.
All right, I'm just pausing there for the banana. So you guys got an idea?
I never realized that it was this bad.
Well, in South Korea, it's really bad. Yeah, it's the worst.
Like 6 grandchildren to every 100 people.
Mm-hmm.
Great grandchildren. Okay? That's crazy bad. And again, the U.S.'s numbers are not that much better, and immigration isn't going to solve it.
No, well, because the countries that are emigrating here also have a decline. So
by the time people like us retire, they may actually, euthanasia may actually be considered a definitely Canadian retirement plan.
Yep. Yeah, that might happen. They're already doing it. They're already doing it. So there is that.
Essentially, all that can be done is to reverse course as quickly as possible. And what you're going to see essentially as populations decline is what you see there's not a whole lot of things that like Japan and Detroit have in common, but one thing they have in common are these essentially ghost towns and abandonment of the elderly in sort of warehoused nursing homes. In Japan, you see it like these villages where it's like the shopkeepers are all like 65 plus. And the whole community obviously is sustained to some extent by sort of social insurance, by entitlement programs. But you've got people right on the edge of retirement running the town essentially for this population of like 85, 95-year-old retirees who are just impossibly lonely and increasingly poor, running out of money. It's becoming increasingly impossible to take care of them the way that they would ideally be taken care of. And I think ultimately it's more like this sort of emotional and spiritual crisis, or at least what I would say is in Japan, the emotional and spiritual crisis is isolated because they're actually doing a fairly decent job of managing the economic consequences up to this point.
I'm pausing there for the banana. He's talking about Japan, but we're going to get into some better stuff in a little bit.
I'll have to say that, being in a small town in Canada, I don't know how it is in other small towns. We are not doing too bad. Like, there's actually more kids now. I wonder if it's because of this housing issue, because you can get a house in a small town for a decent amount of money. We're like not an extravagant amount of money. And I wonder if young families are all just migrating out of the cities. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
'Cause it seems like there's almost like a bit of a resurgence.
I mean, people are having kids here, but this Roanoke is not a big city. But I think he's looking at it in a big picture way. So I think like the urban centers, the large metropolises, that's where there's going to be the biggest problems, and the places that depend on sort of state-funded support, like welfare programs and whatnot. Those are unsustainable. And when you couple that with all the shit that all the various lobby groups like the UN want to reach net zero carbon emissions, which is basically just going to kill industries, kill people, and they don't care because they're going to be taken care of, right? And all these other things are just going to pile on top.
That's a complete pipe dream.
I know,
that's just for taxes.
They're not even but they don't care. It's going to kill people, and they're fine with it. Even if it doesn't work, that's okay. They can be like, well, it's patriarchy's fault. I mean, they can just blame whatever because they're going to be fine. They're not going to do that to themselves. They're going to do that to us, the peasants, right? If they can do it. And so when you add everything else, like you were talking about the trans women thing. Again, I have to go back to these children that are being coerced into transitioning, and they are making themselves infertile. They are castrating themselves, and there are even adults that decide to do that. That's also a growing problem. It's a growing number, almost to the point where it's like, are you sure this is the right course of action? Like, is this what you really want? Because I don't know. I think it's a problem. I think it's a problem, and I think we should be able to question all of it. Like, should there be this many people that are certain that they have gender dysphoria, and they're certain that the only solution is to castrate themselves? Because if they come to regret it later, then this is just another, you could say, like, part of the overall formula that's reducing our population, and more importantly, our ability to procreate, because there's fewer people that can do it. And there's a lot of other things too, like stuff that we're eating and drinking and in the plastics and everything. These are other issues. They're small. The majority is something we're going to get to in a second, but there's a number of compounding factors. So
skeptical that will happen in Europe or the United States, because it's a much more homogeneous society. It's a much more sort of culturally cohesive and orderly society, and highly automated, rich per capita, and it just has a lot of advantages that we do not have here. And so those are the kinds of things that we're going to be looking for. Also, infrastructure failure, like we saw in Detroit with the water in Flint, Michigan. A lot of that is just the fact that the number of people to maintain the machines, and I don't mean like water treatment experts necessarily, although that's part of it. I mean the tax base, the young working population that pays the bills for the infrastructure. As that dwindled, there just wasn't the budget to maintain, because you're pumping water, you're pumping sewer, you're pumping electricity through this city that used to be enormous, and you're pumping it to like one guy on this street and one family on that street, and it stops making economic sense. And so the value of those properties collapses. People's retirement, the majority of middle-class families, they have like 70% of their net worth in their homes. And as those values collapse, it's sort of not a simple thing to be middle-aged or elderly and to have to leave your home and to have that home be like worth nothing, essentially, to be wiped out, especially.
All right, I'm just pausing there for the banana again.
Yeah, like, and that's what I was talking about. And of course, you'd have to look at it wide scale. If we lose the money, actually, that was something that I didn't consider. But yes, we also have to have the funds to pay the people, the men mostly, to maintain this stuff. And we won't have that if we don't have the tax base. So it's going to be like, again, like if you're an ecologist thinking that, oh, wow, this is going to be great because no, it's not going to result in less pressure on the earth. It's going to be horrific. it's going to be absolutely horrific. Like I said, it's going to be an extinction level event if we can't maintain our infrastructure. One, the destruction of our infrastructure will itself cause problems, and two, the inability to feed and shelter. I mean, no matter when this happens, when the infrastructure fails, as soon as it does, you're going to see a mass migration of humans, desperate humans, into wilderness areas, and they're going to be stripped. Like, you cannot support. The thing is that you would need 17 Earths, I think. I think that's the estimate, to support the population of the Earth now and a hunter-gatherer society. So hunter-gatherers need more land and more they need more land to be able to acquire the resources to support themselves. So if everybody today, or even just 1/4 of the population today, had to resort to hunting and scavenging, it would destroy our ecology. I mean, even having that many dead bodies would be destructive, right? So it's gonna be like, it's not good. You know, we aren't gonna die off fast enough unless we bomb ourselves with nukes. We're not gonna die off fast enough to preserve the environment. So this is like, if you actually walk through this horrific scenario, logically, nobody's going to win from this. Even if you are the most nihilistic, anti-human, preserve the earth, crazy-ass eco-terrorist, you aren't going to get what you want from this. It's going to be absolute horror for every living animal on the planet. Okay.
All right, let's keep going.
Especially as people increasingly have these homes on long mortgages with high interest rates. Yeah, so it's essentially, you're looking at a really serious economic problem where probably Gen X is going to be the first that gets hit with this, where Social Security becomes insolvent, reliable economic growth is collapsed, meaning that home values in a lot of states will also have collapsed. 401ks will have fallen quite a lot. And it's like, what do you do at that point? It's not obvious there's a ton you can do. It's just people becoming dramatically poorer in our lifetime. And so the intervention has to take place now. Like, there's not really a way to like put a trampoline under this thing to save it. Like, you have to fix it at the top. You have to not jump off that cliff.
All right. So that's the end of that section. I'm going to jump ahead.
Yeah, let me just tell. Like,
yeah, it's fine.
So, all right. So we have to fix it now. Okay, dude. What is his, like, the thing is that basically what he said, that the problem is that people are not having children, right?
Yep.
That means they're not forming families.
Yep.
Women are not marrying and producing children and raising them. And honestly, single motherhood is the least efficient way to raise children.
Yep.
People don't know that. The most effective way to raise a large population of healthy children is monogamy. 2 parents in the house, and with their kids, raising them. That's the most effective way to quickly increase your population, is to get marriages back.
Yep.
Right. So we're looking at this basically a Holocaust, is not just population wise and economically, but also ecologically. It's gonna take a huge toll on the earth to endure this. And it's because men and women aren't coming together and forming families. So what's the solution? What does he think the solution is?
Well, let's get into the next section. I forgot what it was, but I put asterisks by them, so they're probably more important. Do you have any thank yous to give out? I haven't got any super chats or Rumble rants or super chows, which is giving me the big sad. So, do you have any thank yous?
Guys, get some super chows in there. Ask us questions. Send us your patented esoteric confusing text.
Yeah.
Let us puzzle. Let us puzzle over your wisdoms. Okay, send us super chats. Feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Somebody send $5. Let us know we're not screaming into the abyss, although I think we often are. Okay.
All right, let's continue.
Rocket.
Okay.
Well, you kind of hinted at part of what's going on, but what is your best guess as to why this happened? What is the cause of this? Given that it's something that transcends cultures and political boundaries, so it can't have an explanation that's exclusive to one society. What do you make of it? Where do you think it comes from?
I can tell you what it's not. It's definitely not people just making an intelligent economic choice to have smaller families. They're not actually having smaller families. Family size among people who have at least one child, pretty much the same since the 1970s. Hasn't changed that much. So it's still quite rare for families to have only children. It's a little bit less common to see big families, but ultimately, if you can get people to that first kid, they're going to have probably several. That family will probably be above replacement fertility. They're probably going to have more than 2, or at least 2.
So the issue is people not having children, period.
So once you get the woman to pop out one, it's like you can't have just one. Okay.
Yeah, it's like
motherhood instinct engages.
It's like Pringles. Once you pop, you can't stop. So, but he's saying that. But the issue is that there are more people not having children at all. So
yeah, no, not getting to the first one. Yeah.
Yeah.
The issue is them not having children, period. It's a massive, massive fraction of people who are not having children at all. And I can tell you another thing it's not about. It's not about people making an intelligent, rational choice to not have children either.
So I wanted to point that out because when I brought this up, you said, "Well, I'm not having kids." So the percentage of rational people that say, "I don't think I want children," is still really, really small.
Yeah.
So it's not that. And like Lauren said the same thing. She's like, "I don't really want to have kids," and she thought I was accusing her of something. It's, no, I'm not doing that. It's not an accusation, but you are in the minority. And yet, we aren't having them. So let's continue.
It's not people saying.
Yeah.
Okay, in my case, I just, there was just so much freaking. I didn't want to subject a child to me, essentially. Mm-hmm. And all of my crap. So that was my logical argument for it. Although now that it's probably an impossibility for me, I realize that considering the women who do have kids, I probably wouldn't have been that bad.
No, you'd be surprised at what we are capable of when the need arises. But I get it.
It sort of occurred to me when I was picking up, I had just stepped in this little puppy's shit and was picking it up without much actual concern or complaint. It occurred to me, hey, I guess this is something I could have been able to do. And it actually came around the time when I realized that my mom was not the worst mother. Like we had a rough goddamn relationship. Rough is probably putting it mildly. But she was very loyal to my father, and she would have never broken our relationship up. Mm-hmm. Which made me realize that she's head and shoulders above she's head and shoulders above the average mother.
Yeah.
As rough of a mother, as rough as it was to be her daughter, my mother was better than average as a mother, simply because she was loyal to my father and she would have never broken our relationship up. That's it. And that realization just was like, holy crap. I spent a good portion of my life being resentful towards my mother. And then to realize that actually, no, she wasn't that bad. Could have been worse. Could have been a lot worse. Even if she was, verbally very difficult, very disagreeable, very aggressive, she never would have taken me away from my father. Mm-hmm. And that makes her better than half.
That's true.
At least of all the mothers out there. And that
Yep.
just that realization, it floored me, humbled me, and made me realize, well, maybe I wouldn't have been that bad, because I sure as hell wouldn't have taken my any kids that I had with Jonathan away from him.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway.
Let's play some more of this.
It's just not for me. Some people come around to that after the fact, but actually since 1990, the number of women who say, I don't want kids, it's a conscious choice, is stable at 5%. Like that, we think about a lot of things having changed culturally since then, a lot of dramatic changes. So I was a little bit surprised to hear that, but like it's 5%, 95% of women want to have kids, at least one. And what ends up happening is what demographer Stephen Shaw calls unplanned childlessness or circumstantial childlessness. He did surveys of the women who don't have kids. About 10% of the childless say it was a choice they made on purpose. Another 10% say they were medically unable, and that's an increasing, growing fraction. We're going to be talking about why that is at the conference as well, the sort of biomedical side of this.
He's talking about this at a conference. That's why he's mentioned, just for a little bit of context. I'd say that the infertility, I mean, if you have a stable relationship, you're going to have a lot more of a chance to overcome infertility. Yeah.
So I imagine a lot of this is just single women who do not have a stable source of the baby juice.
Yeah.
Who have to rely on everything medical, every aspect of the whole process being medical, and they can't get pregnant.
Yeah,
I mean, it must be, it's probably a pretty harrowing experience to try to do that alone.
Cassie J had her second baby, by the way.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it is. It is. I think that before she made this movie, she was probably not even going to be with that guy, and she wasn't planning marriage or anything, and now she's got 2 kids. But so congratulations, Cassie. Hopefully we'll get to have you on the show again soon.
Well, it's interesting because I did talk to her about why she was a feminist and how things changed. And she said that the reason why she was a feminist was because she wanted to be right. And you could see that on the interview that I did with her. And it's true. Like, feminism gives women a sense of being able to judge men and to have something over on the men in her life. And when she questioned that, she says that she let go of a lot of resentment towards her partner and started to recognize a lot more of what he was investing in the relationship, which then improved it. And I know that she had a lot of difficulties getting to the point where she had a kid. I don't know if you knew that, Brian.
I did know that. I did. I talked to her about it, like at ICMI. I didn't make an official interview, but we were all having drinks that night, and we were hanging out.
And to go, to be able to overcome that, and I won't get any more detail into that, but you do need a really strong relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that ultimately, and I've seen this in other situations. Like, I know that we are responsible for, I know our community, we have now, there's Cassie, who has 2 kids. There's Prim, who has 2 kids. There's a younger woman than me anyway, named Tiny, who is on her first. So in our community, we're actually getting people to the point of producing children, or at least tangentially, the people who are interested in these issues are producing children.
Yeah.
And that's interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I'm seeing from the community that we've constructed is that there's a lot of this dysfunction that is dissolving. So you see somebody who originally thought that he was identifying as a woman or starting to identify as non-binary, going back to identifying as a man because he's part of a community that's very positive about masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
And then furthermore, going on to become a tradesman of all things, if you can believe it.
It's a good idea.
so I mean, moving along on a pathway that's a lot more beneficial to society. I just find that interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that has been an effect of this community, and all we've done is hold women responsible and
Yeah.
be positive about masculinity.
Yep. It's not that
That's it.
hard.
It's not that hard.
No. So, all right, let's hear some more because I think this gets good.
But the remaining 80%, the vast majority, are women who said, you know, I just didn't find the right guy, or I thought I would have more time after my career was over, or I would take a break or something. It just didn't happen for me, even though I would have liked for it to.
Huh! I wonder why you couldn't find the right man. I wonder why you got caught up in your job and you ended up pursuing a career and girl bossing all over the place. I wonder.
cope.
I wonder. No, I know. Like, I wonder why you thought, well, I can wait. I'll wait. You know, I'll put it off. I didn't find the right guy. It got harder and harder as time went on, and now I don't have kids. So the overwhelming majority, and this is a recent thing, so he said that historically, like since the 90s, I guess for as long as they've been studying it, the percentage of women that made a conscious choice, and he is only talking about women here, because I think in general men want kids, right? But when it comes, and women are the ones that decide whether or not that happens, so it kind of has to come down to women, right? So since the 90s, only 5% of women made a conscious choice to not have children. That's not harmful. That's not harmful because it's normal, right? That you would get a small percentage of women. Then there
most
is,
of the time in the past they had to become nuns, but
yeah, or whatever. Maybe they just wanted to be. You sometimes you need, like you said, you need like an Isaac Newton, like a guy who doesn't have kids, but they contribute in another way to society, you know, right, in some major way.
yeah,
And then
like
you get
people,
a small percentage of women who can't have children and a small percentage of men who also can't have children. Not a big deal. But the 80% of women that wanted kids, but there were all of these things, these decisions that they made, to like waiting, like focusing on career, like girl bossing, all that got in the way. And now they're like, oh, well, I guess it's too late. Oh, I guess men don't want me anymore. Oh, right? And so that's the reason why this is happening.
Yep.
And who promotes that? Who promotes girl bossing? I have a video clip here I want to switch to. Because I think this is entirely relevant. And I know that I saw that you responded to this video. It's only 1 minute long, but I want to play. This is from CNN, so I'm going to have to pause for the banana. And it's called, Why Are Fewer Women Getting Married? And tell me if you can see, like, there's a bit of a correlation, let's say. I don't want to assume causation, but there's a correlation here.
This is the Ivy League version of I Don't Want No Scrubs.
Oh,
This is a real study that was done through Cornell University that said a shortage of economically attractive men. There's not enough men who are economically attractive. That may be one of the reasons why marriage is on the decline. Now, marriage.
Okay,
All right.
just make sure that
I
pause
did.
for the damn banana, because
Pause
I'm
for
pretty
the
sure
banana.
CNN was going to be all over that copyright.
Yeah, they will.
But yeah, this is I remember getting into an argument with a feminist or something. Like, okay, this was a really, really bizarre argument. So somebody, like, these women are basically cackling
Cackling?
plus calculating.
Yeah.
Calculated cackling. Okay, they're cackling about scrubs, right? So when I retweeted this video, a guy got on there and he was obviously upset because you can understand why men might be upset at this. And yes, it's okay for men to be upset at something. It doesn't make them less men. And he was saying, well, what about, like maybe it's because there aren't any virginal women to marry and all women who want to get married, 30-year-olds who've been run through by blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's a little saucy. And this woman swans in and says, wow, married women are less happy than single women. So it's not women who are disappointed that there are less marriages. And I'm like, okay. And I said, no, the statistics I've seen suggest that married women are substantially happier. And it actually is true. Like
Of
if you look
course.
at the general social survey, married women are twice as happy as single women. Twice. Like
Yeah.
40% of married women will say, yes, I'm very happy. 20% of single women will say, yes, I'm very happy. Okay? And it's probably even worse for women who have divorced. So yes, married women are happier than single women. The reason why that ridiculous factoid got legs was it was actually based on a misunderstanding, potentially, a misunderstanding of one of the surveys. And the individual in question, I think his name is Nolan, he thought that when they were asking if a married woman was in the room or was in residence with her husband, he thought that meant that the husband had walked out of the room, so the woman was able to be honest because, you know, she wasn't taking a survey around her husband, and then he extrapolated from those numbers that married women were less happy. But actually, and so he ignores the numbers where the married women said, yes, my husband is in the home with me, versus the numbers where the married women said, no, my husband isn't. He said, oh, those are the numbers we have to look at because those are the honest numbers. And people pointed out that, no, that's not actually what the survey was asking. They were asking married women if their husband was in residence with them. In other words, he wasn't like on a business trip or living in another country to pursue business or dealing with some other reason why he wasn't living in the same house with them. So it had nothing to do with the husband being out of the room and suddenly the wife being able to be honest. It had everything to do with whether or not she was actually able to live with her at that moment in time. And the women who weren't able to be living with their husband at that moment in time were less happy. And he completely misrepresented all of this. And now we have to deal with this ridiculous factoid that comes from nowhere that single women are happier than married women. No, they are not. They're substantially less happy. Anyway, I pointed this out to her, and I said, the only time that married women are less happy is when they lose their husbands. So as women get older, if they're married, their happiness declines, but it's because they're starting to become widows. So the only time a married woman is less happy is when she's bereaved. Less happy than a single woman. And then I said something like, it's better to have loved than lost, which is something you wouldn't know because I assumed that she was a single woman. And then she comes back with, I'm married. I am a grandma. And I'm like, lady, you're coming in on this thread crowing about single women being happier than married women, and you're married? God Lord, I feel sorry for your husband.
Yeah, right. You're
like,
probably
how many
making
times
him
has he had to
miserable.
hear that shit?
Yeah.
Oh, if I were single, I would be so much happier. You're such a burden. It's like, so I pointed that out to her, and she's like, oh, you're so hateful. I'm like, okay, kiss your husband for me, and thank him for saving you from being miserable, like being proportionately more likely to be miserable as a single woman. And she swanned off. But it's like this is the thing. Like, there's so much cope, and women are not happy single, and they're not happy not having kids. And I honestly, I don't really care because this is the consequences of their choices, and it's gonna get a lot worse. Like, the consequences of their choices are gonna get a lot more gruesome than this. But to say, to paper over this, to pretend like, oh no, women are happier single, women are happier without kids. Well, generally women are happier without kids, but they're not happier single. But to paper over all of that with cope, it's just ridiculous. Anyway, continue. I guess, I don't know if that's an aside or if that was actually relevant.
It's fine. It's fine. Let's. I think I'll play a little bit more of this video. It's a short clip.
I don't think you have to play much.
Yeah, it's only like a minute long. So.
Marriage is at its lowest in about 150 years in America, the marriage rate. Now, what do they mean by economically unattractive? They said it's somebody who either doesn't have a bachelor's degree, so that's prospects, or a stable job making $40,000 a year or more. They said one reason might be education. The lead author said This is a rough quote.
All right, I'm pausing there for the banana again. So this is about marriage, but like they're basically hand in hand.
Oh, I
right?
remember what she said. I remember the relevance. So this individual woman said that they didn't ask women what they wanted. Instead, what they did was they modeled the men women were marrying.
Mhm.
So they constructed a model of what a man a woman marries looks like. And then they compared that model to the available men in the US. And it explained why so many women weren't married, because they didn't have access. There weren't enough men who matched that model. And that model was earning 58% more than the unmarried men.
Mm-hmm.
That was the most critical difference that they found. And she said, well, they didn't ask women what they wanted. No, they just looked at the behavior. They looked at the men women were choosing to marry. They didn't ask the women what they wanted. They just looked at men women were choosing to marry.
Well, you don't have to. I mean, if you ask women what they wanted, they won't be able to tell you anything honest anyways. They probably don't know.
Yeah.
So Jojo keeps moving around, but I'm trying to keep his face in there so you guys can see his snoot. I'm booping it. By the way, Jojo booped Mike's snoot when he came over. He's like, he booped my snoot. I was like, well, that's a good sign. That's a good sign. All right, so we'll play the rest of this, then we'll go back to Tom Woods.
Many young men today have little to bring to the marriage bargain, and he talked about how women are going to school more because they want to, bring more to the table to get better jobs. I'll say this. This is your sort of piece of money advice, and this doesn't just come from me. It comes from Warren Buffett. He says that the biggest, most powerful choice you will ever make in your life is choosing the right person for the right reasons.
Okay. And what a smug expression on his face.
I know. It's like she's saying what the problem is and doesn't seem to see that it's a problem. Like,
yeah, she never grew up. She just got old.
Yeah, exactly. If women are getting more degrees and making more money and they're not marrying, she seems to think, well, I guess the men got to step up. But then it's like, first of all, what are degrees really worth? Second of all, I thought that this whole feminist thing was about giving women the same opportunities as men. They have more opportunities than men now, and the women are unhappy. It's almost like this doesn't work. And the men aren't happy either. Or they're just going MGTOW, which is, another rational choice that men make not to have kids. So, it's like you're literally looking at the messy room that you made and you're like, man, somebody came in here and made a mess of things. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah. Sorry, I was actually looking at tweets. I'm really sorry, Brian.
Oh my God, let's keep going.
Addicted.
I'm gonna play some more.
So then the question becomes like, why is that happening? I think to some extent, there's definitely the two-income household strategy is extremely contraceptive. It interferes with people's ability to have certainly more than two kids. Basically, Elizabeth Warren wrote a book called The Two-Income Trap that talks about how much of the second income in a two-income household goes to just things you only had to buy because you have two incomes and you have kids.
I'm going to pause it there for a second because I heard Elizabeth Warren mentioned when she says that what she was calling for was for all of the services that a mother would do that she has to now pay, childcare, stuff like that, daycare, that it should be free, i.e. paid for by the taxpayer. So she's not saying that it might be a problem that you have two parents working because they can't give more time to the children and they can't make time to have more children. She's saying that the state, i.e. men, should cover those costs. So I'm just saying that's her goal, but the observation is correct. So, and I don't think, because people will say, well, you have to have two incomes, it's the only way. No, I think that you can make it work. I think that people have to, if they want a family, they have to make compromises, and you can make it work. People in third world countries raise lots of kids. So no, that I don't agree with. But anyway.
Well, you can also, there was one family that the way they structured it is they did alternating shifts.
Yeah.
And that worked for them. And you know, it's like it's you can make it work. But you know, it is harder because there's not much extended family.
It's harder. Yeah, it's harder.
But the other thing is that when you're talking about this, like, geez, I think I just forgot what I was gonna say. I'm really sorry. Oh wait, yes, this. Send those super chats, guys. I want to hear you guys' opinion on this. Like, what do you think of this? Of what we're saying? Do you think it's accurate? You think it's not accurate? So send in your opinions. feedthebadger.com/justthetip.
And by the way, guys, don't let this black pill you too much. I think that there's still time to make it right. And maybe and I think we'll be okay, at least, I think. So, but I'm just don't, because if you get black pilled, you're just gonna make it worse. You're gonna make it worse for yourself. You're gonna make it worse for everybody else.
I mean, it's a bit of a white pill because you can see the normies, like their gears are working now.
Mm-hmm.
They have to start seeing this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, what part of the problem, if you're not having children, well, look at what we've put the situation we've put men into. Not only are they no longer capable of becoming economically attractive to the same degree, because we haven't just given women the opportunity to pursue this economic liberty or whatever. We've basically handicapped men. Like, they're outright discriminated against in the employment fields.
Yep.
And I've seen this over and over again. It's like, it's unavoidable.
Yeah.
It's just the truth.
DEI.
Yeah.
There's like a number of factors. There's a number of factors.
It's just the truth. And men are being discriminated against in terms of the financial world. And this isn't actually even new. Bachelors used to be discriminated against in terms of jobs as well. So the idea that we continue to discriminate against bachelor men, you know, it's not surprising. They seem to be the people that are the group of people that is most expendable to society.
Yeah.
So it's just a continuation of what we've always done, except a little bit more severe. So the idea that men can fix this while dealing with a handicap, an economic handicap, because we are now wanting to give these jobs to women. We want women to, and also a educational handicap, because goddamn, college campuses are not safe for men. Not when we've looked at all of the freaking false accusations that we've seen, including one where a woman flat out sexually assaulted a man. You know, got on him while he was passed out drunk, and I mean passed out. Had herself a good time, and the next day accused him of rape. You know, these kinds of false accusations of men on college campuses, you know, they're not safe there either. And they're leaving those places in troves. And of course, women don't look down on trades, right? They don't want to marry a sewer worker, even if he makes 6 figures.
Yep.
You know, so all of these things, all of these factors, plus, we've given the task of defining the relationship between men and women. We've given the task of defining how men relate to women to the craziest mother frickin' women on the planet. Like, we've basically handed the task of saying how, this is what men contribute to the family. This is what men contribute to the relationship to women. All they contribute is violence and criminality because herp-a-derp, I'm a lesbian separatist. We've handed that to men. So not only do they have the economic, the educational handicaps, they have the social handicap of being portrayed as burdens and criminals towards women.
Yeah.
And then
they're still keeping things running.
And they're still keeping things running. And the normies turn around and say, well, why is there demographic collapse? I don't know. And if you are somebody who actually agrees with the crazy women's appraisal of what men bring to relationships and society, if you actually believe that men would ever construct a society for their own benefit at the expense of women, you are part of the problem. You are perpetuating the craziest notion of the relationship between men and women. since like the first science fiction where this Greek dude went to the moon, where they have a society where men get boys' thighs pregnant. You know, it's entirely femboys and like Herculean men. It's entirely constructed. Like, that's just crazy. You've handed defining men's relationship to women. You've handed defining men's relationship to women, not to men, not to the poets and the songwriters and the artists of men, the men who do that, you know, and all of the wonderful things that they've expressed about their desires for women. Just listen to like pop music or their music, period. Sonnets, listen to the poetry, listen to the art. We didn't hand it to those men. Oh, how would you define men's relationship to women? No, we found the craziest, sickest, most degenerate lunatics among the lesbian community and handed it to them. And then when the obvious happened, the normies run around saying, how did this happen? And how can men take responsibility for it?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I got a super chow.
Finally.
Thank you for that. So Zeranx gives us $5 and says these people don't consider context. Urban areas have higher costs of living. They also have less area for one to do what they can to cut down on expenses. I priced an apartment on the west side of Manhattan, just below 42nd Street. An alcove apartment, smaller than a studio, had a $4,200 a month rent. There's really nothing you can do but spend money in that area. That's why you leave. That's why I came here. I came here because the cost of living was a fraction of what it was in Chicago. And Lindsay and I can actually survive. We're not exactly thriving, but we can survive on what we're making. So
well, we're
you do what you gotta do. You do what you gotta do. People they wanna live in Manhattan and they wanna pay, you know, the prices of like the fucking hollers in West Virginia. Like you don't get to have it both ways. And so the problem is you have to ask women to lower their standards.
Yeah, and it's sexy to have an apartment in Manhattan.
Yep.
I mean, like, look where
even if it's a closet.
Like where I live, we probably, you know, we don't. People are talking about $40,000 a year, American, like it's ridiculously low. I'm like, that's what we live off of. You know, like and we're fine, and it's because, you know, we got a really cheap house in a small town. My husband does car maintenance and all kinds of other maintenance, so I mean, he probably saves a couple, like probably at least well over $10,000 a year, because he can do all the things that need to get done that otherwise would cost a considerable amount of money. And we live off of very little. And to me, when women are like, oh my gosh, he has to have 6 figures. Why? Like, really, why? Why is it that you think that you deserve to live the life of a fucking sultaness?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like, what gave you the idea that was the life that you got to have? And by what virtue? Are you a supermodel? Probably not. Like, I mean, it really does come down to, when I said that what the big thing that we do is make just give women a way of understanding responsibility. You know, having a better understanding of what they deserve in terms and compared to what they give. I mean, that's for real. That's what women need right now. They do not need this mythical land, like these 17 other Earths where they have 17 other sultans to live, or sheiks to have them live lives of luxury. That's just not going to happen. You have to make your decision. And if you want to have kids, take the house in the town. Where you can live off of $40,000 a year. Hell, I think our neighbors have like 3 kids and they live off $20,000 a year because the guy hunts. You know, and it's go to a place where you can live cheaper where you can have a garden to supplement your income, you know, where you have the space to actually fix things and actually value the things that matter. Human connection. And I don't mean your backstabbing frenemies that you have lattes with who wouldn't do a damn thing for you. Like, literally, ladies. And this is what I was sort of getting at with that woman who's crowing, a married woman crowing about how single women are supposedly happier based on statistics that are false in the first place. But why would you, as a married woman, why would you even be doing that?
Yep.
Like, why would you be doing that? Right?
I know.
You know, for women, you need to understand that the person who's going to care about you most in your life is your husband. Probably even more than your mother. And if your father was a good man, probably, you know, there will be a you know, you'll get a man who cares about you as much as your father did, right? You have to understand that is a companion. Like, that is a value that you're not going to get from your female friends, who will never take a bullet for you, who will probably never pay for your lunch, for God's sake. Like, what is this joke? Like, oh, I got female friends. Yeah, really? You mean you have some mild entertainment in the form of another human being? That's not a relationship for the most part. I mean, you can have good friendships. I'm not saying you can't. But a lot of these, I don't think these women necessarily have that. And one of the reasons why I say that is because I've had girls with these kinds of friends, like feminists, for whatever reason, be friends with me or want to be around me and be like, yeah, I like you because I know you're not going to backstab me. I'm like, well, Jesus, who are your other friends? And this is not uncommon. Like, let's be honest.
Yep.
Like, just having a man in your life is a value, is tremendous value that you're not going to get from your friends, your woman friends. Like I said, they're not going to defend you. They're not going to care about you that much. They're not really going to spend that much time with you. And when you become a bore, they're going to leave you. These superficial, shallow friendships based around girl bossing do not compare to a marriage based around sharing a life and sharing your triumphs and your tragedies. Okay? They just don't compare. A man is a benefit in and of himself. Completely bareheaded with his hands empty. And women need to understand that. Fucking talking about scrubs. You're the scrubs.
Language.
Well, thank you for the super chow, Zeranx.
Sorry for the
it's fine.
digression.
It's all right. I know this is rage fuel. I watched it. I watched this video in particular. I listened to this about 4 times. Well, I'm on my 4th right now as we speak. And I also watched a couple of other ones, so I know this is a big problem. This is actually the reason why I saw a specialist about looking into, like, whether or not, you know, we can figure out a way to have kids, because after cancer, I have been able to, or at least it was said that I wouldn't be able to without intervention. So now I feel like I should. But anyway, let's keep going.
So childcare and living in a better school district, so you have better daycare, childcare, whatever. So ultimately, like, the cap on a 2-income family for having kids is like 2. Otherwise, it no longer makes economic sense. Someone's got to stay home, usually mom. And so that, coupled with just women's education, is strongly correlated with lower fertility, with not being at replacement fertility. And I suspect what's driving that is not necessarily that, like, women go, like, learn things that make them not want to have kids. I think what happens is that...
No, I think they do.
Dude,
I think we're bombarded. I know he is pussyfooting. I mean, I think they're bombarded with that that idea, like, fairly early on. You see it everywhere. I'm sorry. Again, I'll reference the Barbie movie. It opens with a bit of history about how girl dolls used to be baby dolls until Barbie came along, and Barbie was a woman that was a career woman. She could do anything, right? And that became the new doll. So you could say, I mean, the original Barbie was a feminist idea. You could say that is a part of this bombardment of, women. Children are gross, and they're dirty, and they're noisy, and they're a problem, and we have too many people, and you shouldn't do it, and men don't make good husbands, and they're losers, and they're bad fathers, and they're abusive, and they beat their wives, and and everything else. You're not going to have any economic freedom. You're not going to be able to be like the characters on Sex and the City if you like follow this path that is clearly doom, even though we've literally built all of our human societies on that very behavior to this point. But yeah, get rid of all that. Absolutely what women are bombarded with. Maybe not in school, but I think in school too.
Well, no, in school they go to women's studies lectures, or they're influenced by women who go to women's studies lectures. And what do women's studies teach women? Men construct society for their own benefit at the expense of women. The family is a patriarchal institution of oppression of women. Dude, do not pussyfoot around this. The thing is that as much as we call out feminists, normies contribute as much to this problem because they will not question why we have given the center of the chessboard over to the craziest women on the planet. Like, they won't question these fundamental aspects of themselves. And I have ideas about why, but I won't go into them here.
All right. So there's only a little bit left in terms of what I've picked out, so I'll play the rest of this clip.
Higher education levels are a proxy for higher dedication to career, and the career is what ultimately interferes, because there's so many things that have to be kind of done in your 20s under our current sort of economic model to build a career. And it's also this incredibly high value time, frankly, for consumption. Like, there are sort of exciting adventures that make a lot less sense to have when you're 40 than they do when you're in your 20s. And so the argument, the fight, the conflict that's being had is basically, on the one hand, sort of the call to have children and raise a family, and on the other hand, the call to do all these other exciting things are winning the battle.
Okay, yes. And what you need to do is make being a mother and a wife more exciting.
Attractive.
Yes.
Well, it is. I'm sure it's exciting. I mean, I know women that are like pumping out kids like crazy, and they love them. And as soon as they have one, they just want more. I'm sure, I've talked about how men desire to go on adventures, and that living a life as a man does have adventure baked into it, assuming that men are free to pursue those things, and there's something that's worth sort of honoring and given value for it, which we don't do now, but we used to. And so I think that for men, fatherhood is like one of the last adventures, right? They get to raise their kids. It's their way of achieving immortality, you could say, because you imbue your sons and daughters with a piece of you, literally and figuratively, and then they go on to carry that. And when you're old and you're infirmed and you're sick, they take care of you. Excuse me. And that is the thing that we are not recognizing. And I think that's what is told to women, that their career and traveling and adventuring and materialism is more valuable and exciting than things like family, which, how could you even say that if you've never tried it?
And I think that it starts with the devaluing of men, devaluing of masculinity, the framing men as being criminal and antisocial and oppressive. Okay? Because once you get the relationship, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not just women pursuing careers, it's women being single and pursuing careers. Because even women with careers there could be a way to juggle the career, the kids, or even perhaps she can forego the career for the relationship, or the alternative, he can do the same. All right. It's getting women into the relationships that's critical. Okay. It's making them realize that the priorities that they have now are not making them happy in the long term, and that having a partner is actually like, and this is one of the things that we've completely deconstructed in our society. It used to be that a married woman would have status simply because she was married.
Mm-hmm.
And not because, like, the women were worthless without men. But there was a recognition that being married meant that you had gotten out of your own head and learned to be a better person in the context of a relationship with another person. Right? So it is an achievement to be able to sustain a relationship with another human being. It's an achievement to get a man. Okay? And not just like that disgusting psychopath in the 50 Shades of Grey, but a man, a real man.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean real by normal, maybe a tradesman, somebody who is bringing value to the world somehow, not some psycho fuck, millionaire, billionaire. Being able to have a relationship with a man like that was of value. Being able to make a man happy, to understand a man, to be strong where he might need strength, that was valued. A pioneer wife, valued. Home, a farm wife, valued. That kind of thing, that had a value. Being that person was valuable. And yeah, sure, it came with a little bit of, oh, she's a spinster, that kind of thing. Well, you know what? If you can't make a relationship work with somebody who can walk away from you, maybe you deserve to have a lesser social status. So
Yeah.
there was a value to that. There was a value. There was a respect given to a woman who was married. She wasn't seen as a sad sack with a burden, but somebody who had achieved something of worth. Okay? That's completely different now.
Yep.
We don't look at like the Amish women and think, wow, look at those women, with, men who don't ever smile, but are probably pretty happy, and keeping their families together, and everybody looks really healthy compared to the average American. We don't look at those women and see, pillars of their community. We don't see strength. What do we see? We see people who are downtrodden, sad sacks, wretches, right? Because we have absolutely no respect for a married woman anymore. None.
Yep.
We just see them as being idiots who subjected themselves to burdens. And you want to get women to the point of having children? You can't focus on the children. You got to get women to the point of being in relationships, period.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get them paired up first. Then we can start discussing the issue of children. And you got to get women who are able to get out of their head enough to make it work with somebody who can walk away from them, right? Before you give them people who can't.
Yeah.
Right? And we got to be in a world where my mom wasn't better than 75% of moms out there, despite being goddamn one of the roughest people to live with, because she simply wouldn't have taken me away from my father. Right? That's where we need to be at.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we need to fix. Can we do it? I don't know. Let's see.
And I suspect that is not because women are just sort of less civically minded or like love kids less than they used to. I think a lot of it has to do with the uncertainty of raising a family. It's like one of the things that I've said before is they would love to have the husband and the kids and that life, but their paycheck clears. Like they can count on it. They know that if they do the work, they'll get the thing. or at least it's much more of a sure thing than like having a successful marriage and having the kind of life you want from that perspective. And I think that's more
so it's
of what's
risk. Actually, that's a good. We have raised probably the weakest, most risk-adverse generation of women in human history.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna play it and put it right out. They are fucking cowards. Like I can't. I am baffled by how much they run away from responsibility with their hair. Like their hair is on fire. And like this is this level of cowardice and risk aversion in women. I don't think this is normal.
No. Well, I wonder why they're so afraid. I wonder why they're made to feel this way.
Well, yes, because you know why? Well, in my opinion, because they're taught constantly to see themselves as victims of shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like it induces a sense of learned helplessness that makes them incredibly risk adverse. Like it's ridiculous, and you can't tell. Like,
well, and also the men are not economically attractive, as we covered. So the women are more educated, and they get this idea that they're supposed to be making more money, and they also believe that a man, a potential mate, should be making at least the same, if not more. And those men are hard to find. They have narrowed down, like, you know, they've narrowed their reach for men that meet their specific criteria so much that they seem to be non-existent. And they're afraid that if they settle, it's not going to be enough, and they're not going to be able to make it work. So they've sabotaged everything, just about.
And the only thing that's gonna and he's identifying something. He's probably not gonna go where I'm taking it. Women need to woman up and grab their lady balls and take the risks. That's what this sounds like. You need to take the risks. You need to face the world with courage.
Yep.
And it's really freaking ironic coming from me because I got huge social anxieties. But on the other hand, I have taken risks and put myself out there for what I believe in. And you know, you can do that, and you can't run away from responsibility or the consequences of your actions. Like, and there's no two ways around it. Women have to deconstruct the shit that they've been taught in terms of men being criminal and oppressive, and they've got to take the risks. Yep. And because right here, this is a really interesting thing he's saying. Having a paycheck isn't a risk. Trying to make marriage work is a risk. Having children is a risk, right? It's easier to just have a paycheck, especially when you're talking about white-collar job, right? Which is what most women have. So women, if women are going to be able to, if we're going to get through this, we need tougher women. We need braver women. We need smarter women. We need more responsible women. And maybe we can't, can we do that? Can we get those women? Are you out there? Or are you insisting on drowning in a mythology of victimhood and weakness and insisting that men keep stepping up when they can't get into your head and make you not afraid of these things? You have to do that. Okay.
All right. There's only a little left.
What's happening is it's just really hard for women and for men to connect, to get married, to stay married, and then to have kids together and raise them in a way that's aspirational. So that's, I guess, what I would say is what I think is causing it.
Well, given all the sorts of things you've...
All right, I'm going to stop it there. That's I mean, at the end of the day, that's basically the end. Yeah, I mean, I figured it's been almost 2.5 hours that we've been going through this video, but...
Well, I mean, is there anything... Okay. Is there anything that isn't just wrapping up or just...
No, that's basically it. I mean...
Okay, well, actually, no, he's saying what I would say, what I think is causing. I'm actually interested in that. Can we just play another 20 seconds, maybe?
All right.
Well, given all the sorts of things you've talked about, is there a possibility that governments could somehow frame some response to this?
Oh, God, governments? What are you,
make
libertarian?
the situation better?
He is, but I think what he's suggesting is... Okay, here's the thing, because I think they go into LBJ and stuff. And that is kind of, at least in the United States, that's the problem. We don't incentivize, the government does not incentivize women to stay in families with husbands. They incentivize the opposite. They incentivize that women have children without fathers so that they get paid. And so a lot of women do. Now, some don't because they don't think it makes sense, but some just see dollar signs and they do. And what we should be doing is disincentivizing single motherhood, because not just because of the stuff that we've talked about in the show, but a bunch of other shit that we've talked about on previous shows that are the consequences of that. But that in fact, and this doesn't mean the government should be giving anything out. Let me be clear about that. But instead, we should be, what I guess the state could do, and I think what he's going to propose is something like a tax break. So it's basically like if you have a family and all that, you're going to be granted a reward in the form of, lower taxes, which is something that would make a lot of sense. And if you have more kids, then your taxes are even lower. I mean, why not? You're paying for that. You're essentially paying for the next generation of workers and citizens, right? So I think that's what he would, as a libertarian, I think that's what he's going with. Not like we should be giving money out, because again, it's not sustainable.
Yes. I can see what you're saying. Like I said, I think that the only way through the eye of this needle is for women to take responsibility. And this is the hardest conversation for people to have. It's why, like a lot of people are like, why don't you grow? Why don't you consider getting bigger? I'm like, yes, that's a great idea. It's because we talk about this like this. We say that ultimately it's women's responsibility. Blame is irrelevant. Blame doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if women to blame, men to blame. What matters is who has the ability to effect change. And right now, we have put the responsibility on men for so long, and it's not working. There's only one person left in the room. Take responsibility, and she's got to do it. All right, if she wants a decent life, she wants the life she wants, then she's got to take the risks. And it's sounding like that. Even if women don't take the risks of approaching, even saying yes is a risk. Even getting to the point of being married is a risk. Having children is a risk. And that requires women with a certain amount of courage. You go look at the past and how women were.
Yeah.
In like the 50s and prior. They had guts. They had courage. They had to live with a lot of uncertainties in their lives. And they were prepared to meet that. They even had their own sort of form of stoicism, and being reserved and not throwing everything out there, which was interesting to observe when you go look at how women acted in the past. They had a certain dignity and quality of respect. And the way that men and women acted together, they were partners who respected each other. Right?
Yeah.
But we need that. We need women who are courageous. And if we don't have courageous women, we're going to lose it all.
Yep.
And I don't know what else to say. And I know we're talking, and that message is not a message people want to hear, because men do not want to feel like there's nothing they can do. And women, they just run away from responsibility like their hair is on damn fire. And I don't even, like I said, I don't understand it. If you don't take responsibility if you take responsibility for nothing, you are nothing. And if it's easier to just go to work and get a paycheck because it's less frightening than taking the risk of loving and being loved, then you're a coward. And from what I've seen throughout human history, is a society is only healthy and brave and only has as much future as the women are really willing to stand up for it, to be brave for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. There's nothing else to say, and nobody wants to. No, like again, nobody wants to hear this because it's against everything we believe.
Yeah.
We believe men should save women. We believe women should be defined by their cowardice and their inability. That's 99% of feminism.
Mm-hmm.
Is defining women by cowardice and inability and fear.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we believe. Women should be afraid, and men should take responsibility.
Yep.
And we are saying the exact opposite. But guess what? We're here now. We're at the edge of the abyss. And everything that all the politics, all the beliefs about men and women, that's what's brought us here. And the one thing that's going to take us away is going in a different direction. I know this sounds really strange to people. We're on the edge of the cliff. The way you get away from the edge of the cliff is not by going in the same direction as you have been going for the entire time getting to the cliff. It's by turning around and going in another direction. All right? That is what we are saying. We need to go in another direction.
Mm-hmm.
The most difficult thing to hear. Okay.
All right, so I got a super chow from Zeranx. Thank you, Zeranx, for the super chow.
Hump day is always a bit slow for everything. You notice?
Yeah, hump day. Zany gives us $5 and says, I think the way to getting women to consider having kids is community. Is it any surprise that when communities and extended families were disrupted by the Industrial Revolution, that the nuclear family was left open to be negatively impacted? So men who can go anywhere and exist are now able to do that, but then women are most impacted because we see how they lack without men pursuing them. This is complicated, and I have my views, like getting government out of marriage and family. Thank you, Zeranx, for that. And then once you pop, you can't stop, gives us $5 and says can't stop, won't stop. Thank you, LOL. I'm sorry, I forgot to read the LOL part. And yeah, that's all the super chows, and we've been going for about 2.5 hours. So I think that's good, because I do want people to watch this after the fact, and if they see how long it is, they might not. But I do think this is a very important conversation to have. I will end on this. This is the video I watched before. This was like a couple weeks ago that got me thinking about this problem. So I'm just going to play a little bit of this.
What you talk about in the book is that we actually meet the criteria for being an endangered species, right, which is freaky. And I think anybody listening to this is going to call BS right now, because they're like, there's 8 billion of us. There's no way that we meet that. But so yeah. One, is that a fair assessment? Are the stakes really that high? And how?
I'm just pausing for the banana there. It's a short, I'm not playing the whole thing. It's a very short bit here. So
on Earth do we meet the qualifications for an endangered species?
There's definitely a problem with reproductive health. And by the way, it's not just fertility. Fertility is one manifestation of it. There's many others. We'll talk about those. But fertility is a good one to start because that's something that involves the man and the woman. So on the man side, we have declining sperm count, which we've documented most recently in November, showing it's worse than we thought. And
yeah, before it was 1.16%. It's now over 2.5%.
Over 2 point something, yeah.
I think it was like 2.
Okay, I wonder if something happened recently that might have caused that.
I don't know. Yeah. So
some kind of change in the way that we approach our physical integrity, as it were. Okay.
Yeah. No, that's all I'm gonna leave it there. She mostly talks about things like, plastics and soy and seed oils and all these other things that are contributing to this issue. This is all part of the sort of environmental eat the bugs, live in the pod mentality that's being pushed on everybody, and it's been being pushed on people probably for longer than we've been alive. As all these other things. So we're kind of coming into this in the middle, approaching the critical point, the critical juncture, and most people are not aware of it. So I watched that. I watched the whole thing. That Tom Bilyeu thing is like 2 hours long. This Tom Woods thing is like a half an hour. I think they're both worth checking out. And this guy, that the guest that we were just responding to earlier, he has a website called natalism.org. I would look at the website. And he's going to be doing a
Okay.
talk. So I'm just saying, I think that is, if you're
Of worth.
interested, it's of worth. Yes. Yes.
Okay. What about the camel? Are you going to show the?
Oh, you
the
want me to
commercial?
show you the commercial? All right, hold on
Yeah,
a second. Hold on
yeah.
a second.
Let's see the commercial.
I will.
We might
I
have
will
to
end
banana
it.
this sucker, but
I think it's like 30 seconds.
okay.
So
I gotta see it. Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta see it. Oh yeah, I think you guys have seen this commercial. You must have. You must have. Yeah, it's 30 seconds. So let me put that in here. And then you guys can check this out.
Look at this diversity here.
Yeah, right off the bat, it's diverse. Okay. All right, here we go.
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-hoo!
Ronnie, how happy are folks who save hundreds of dollars switching to Geico?
Okay, you
I'd
gotta
say
stop
happier
it.
than a
It's like
camel
a-
on Wednesday.
Hump day!
Get happy.
Yeah.
Get Geico.
Shit, we're gonna
Mike,
totally
Mike,
get
Mike,
her for
Mike.
that.
Mike.
Hump day.
Hump day. I like the way this.
Oh, God.
I like the way the secretary is like, it's hump day. Like she knows. Yeah. Anyway, it is hump day
Okay.
though. It is hump day.
It is.
Um,
It is. And we have brought. Now you're over the hump.
Yeah.
Now you've seen into the abyss, the ecological, demographic, and economic collapse that is imminent because we refuse to like each other anymore. And as much as we want to blame men, I think that the opening salvo came from one particular side of the court, and it wasn't men's.
Yep.
And we do. I think we really need. You know, we got this. I keep calling the center of the chessboard. The relationship between men and women is the center of civilization's chessboard. It's the most critical thing to get right if you want a civilization that works long term. And right now, like imagine like we have one of those chessboards in like a park, you know, that's a big chessboard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like with those pieces that you'd have to pick up with both hands to move. Yeah. We got a bunch of really crazy women squatting in the middle of the chessboard, muttering to themselves about patriarchy and toxic masculinity, and how men have constructed a society for their own benefit at the expense of women, and how we need to reduce men to 10% of the population, and all this crap. All right, it's time to go get them and remove them from the center of the chessboard
Yeah.
and repair the damage that they have done. Okay, that's all.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
All right. Well, that's it. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go. So,
Yep.
no patron show today. Obviously this went long, so maybe after tomorrow or Friday's show.
Yeah, just make sure we get enough for the month, right?
I mean, I do them when it makes sense, when I'm able.
Yeah, I'll just double check that. Yep. All right. So everybody, if you like this show, please support it at feedthebadger.com/support. And if you want to make a comment on this particular show in particular, please go to feedthebadger.com/justtip. You can do so at any time after the show. So if you've enjoyed what we've talked about, if you want us to know your thoughts or answer a question, feedthebadger.com/justtip. We will endeavor to read out your super chat at the next relevant show.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we always appreciate having the funds to continue our work, bringing attention to the fact that the way you get away from the cliff is not to continue to walk towards it.
Yeah.
You have to stop and do something different. Even if nobody wants to hear it or very few people want to hear it, the only solution is not to continue to blame men, because that is what has got us to the edge of the cliff. It is to turn around. Expect women to take some responsibility and maybe be better. And nobody wants to hear that, or very few people want to hear that, but it's something that everybody does need to hear. You may not want to hear it, but you need to hear it. Anyway, feedthebadger.com/justthetip. You want to say anything to us? feedthebadger.com/support if you want to help us out. Make sure we can keep making this content. And back to...
Yeah, and I also want to add, in case you guys are not aware, we have a new gaming channel. Since like most of the shows I host are at like in the evening or late afternoon hours, that leaves me a little bit of free time during the day. So maybe like once or twice a week, I will do a game stream on our alternative, or on another channel called Honey Badger Arcade. I put a link in the description. I just put it in, so maybe refresh the page and go subscribe to us there. We do gaming and we'll chat about stuff that's going on, and it's basically like a laid back kind of chill, stream experience. So if you want to decompress after hearing about what sounds like an apocalyptic event that's coming in the next couple of generations, maybe you can just hang out with us and we can build a community there. So that's Honey Badger Arcade. Search it on YouTube, but I put a link in the description. It should work. I tested it, so it should be good, and I hope to see you guys there. All right. Thanks so much. And do you have any more thank yous to give, Allison?
Oh, let me just double check. I haven't looked in this moment. Come on, wake up, computer.
All right.
Come on. I'm sorry. It's my Mac's decided to go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hello, Mac. All right, here we come. No. I guess I'll do a shout out to Mrs. Anne of Arc for $5 though during that time. Like,
oh, nice.
I might as well give thank yous to people who've been supporting.
All right.
And their Fantas Dan gave us $500, so thank you, Fantas Dan.
Whoa! Hold on a second. There's got to be something good. I think I'll give him the GTA 5. It's long, but it's funny.
Oh, nigga, don't hate me because I'm beautiful, nigga. Maybe you got rid of that old yee ass haircut you got. You get some bitches on your dick. Oh, better yet, maybe Tanisha will call your dog ass if she ever stop fucking with that brain surgeon, the lawyer she fucking with, nigga.
Okay. It's a meme. Grand Theft Auto
Also,
5.
I think this is a new patron. His name is Chris, and he gives us $250.
Oh my goodness, that is amazing.
Yeah, actually, that's a new supporter. So thank you, Chris. Or
I'm really rich. Yeah.
I'm really rich. Or a new email with the old supporter. So thank you, Chris. And again, if you want to join our very generous supporters, it's feedthebadger.com/support. Let's keep this ball rolling.
Yeah.
Maybe when everybody at the cliff and all the normies are looking down and saying, "Hey, this seems to blaming men seems to have sort of done nothing," and they see us just like rolling this boulder away from the cliff, maybe they'll be like, "Hey, maybe they have an idea there. Let's go follow the people with the crazy boulder people."
Yeah. This is a difficult Sisyphean task.
This is a difficult task, but
yes.
on the other hand, it does feel like you're actually doing something, doesn't it?
It does. Hey, I'm doing my best. So
you're not just like getting closer to the cliff. Hey guys, let's blame men some more. Maybe it'll like doing the thing that got us this close to the cliff will get us away from it. If we just blame men hard enough. God damn. All right.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it. I'm done. Okay. I'm sorry. That was a very abrupt stop.
All right. So thanks for all the support. If you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. And please, please, please share this video. Also, please go over to Honey Badger Arcade and give us a follow and a subscription there as well. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of, what is this, Maintaining Frame? And we'll talk to you all in the next video.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.